all this month you can help some of our war veterans by buying a fuchsia badge, and the money spent goes to providing accommodation and assistance for former servicemen and women. Ollie O'Connor is the chief executive of One, which is the organisation of national ex-servicemen and women. He joins us now in studio. Ollie, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today? Nice to see you. And two ex-servicemen, Pat Cochran, is that it?
Cochran, that's it.
Cochran, yeah. And Sean Keating. Good morning, Sean. How are you today? I'm reliably informed you're a Something Happens fan.
Sorry?
I'm reliably informed you're a Something Happens fan, so we may approach that later on, or maybe unreliably, as the case may be. Ollie, good morning.
Good morning.
I find it hard to believe that ex-servicemen could end up living on the streets. It seems...
Well, people in all walks of life end up living on the streets, and service personnel are no different, you know, and there are various reasons. It could be a breakup of a marriage or a partnership. It could be they have a social problem, or they may be just lonely. They find themselves not able to cope, having worked in an institution for many years, and then trying to live independently without being ready for it, basically.
Okay, and is it an extensive problem?
It would appear to be. We would have no statistics in Ireland, but I know in Britain 1 in every 4 homeless person has gone through the armed forces.
Really?
Yes, that's the statistics they have over there. Yeah.
So there would be a correlation between...
There may be. So we can't say for that.
Most you can say, but those statistics are quite high, aren't they?
They are indeed, yeah.
Right. So just to put flesh on the bone here, the sort of stories. Pat, what was your story? How did you come to join the army?
I joined the army in '79. At that time, it was just sort of in thing to do at the time. There wasn't much employment in the country in '79, and just sort of joined the army. It was a secure job.
And where did you go?
I was stationed in Gormanston.
And did you ever go abroad with it?
I did. I was overseas in 1983 with the 8th Irish component.
Was that in Lebanon?
In Lebanon, yeah.
How did you get on there?
Good trip, yeah. Enjoyed it. It was experience.
What were you doing in the army?
I was a chef in the army,
right,
more or less. But I was a soldier before a chef, so you did your army duties as well as your cooking duties as well.
Right. How many years in the army?
I was 12 years in the army.
12. And what else was going on? Did you get married?
I did, yeah. I got married, but unfortunately that didn't work out. Every woman out there is unfortunately not cut out to be a soldier's wife.
What happened?
Well, when you're a soldier, you spend 4 or 5 hours a day with your wife, so that's basically you sort of grow apart, that type of thing. That some women are not cut out for that type of life.
Right. Was the problem that when you were away, or was it when you were...
sort of when I was away on duty with Lebanon.
That distance between you.
Yeah.
Very hard to take.
Yeah.
So you did 12 years there, and then you what happened then?
I left in '91, and at that time things were starting to pick up in this country, and there was good money to be made out there as a chef. So I left and went out to be a chef. But unfortunately, then after up to a year and a half ago, I lost my job.
Right. And
I was living in private rented accommodation at the time, in which after losing my job I couldn't afford to keep that anymore, because the price you were paying for a house was absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
So I found myself with nowhere to go, so I found myself homeless on the streets.
My God, it seems to me to be a huge jump from losing your job to being homeless.
It is, yeah. It's a very big
how
jump.
How did it happen?
It's you sit back and you get yourself into a rut, and it's very hard to get out of it, and you don't see any way out of it, and it's very hard, especially if you have got an organisation like One there to help you.
Yeah. Just to bring me back into it, though, I mean, when you were in the army, you were married.
Yeah.
There was a family home.
There's a family home, yeah.
Right. Did you have any kids?
I had no children, no.
Right. And then when that broke up, where did that leave you?
I was in the army when my marriage broke up at first, so I had the army to fall back on then.
Yeah.
But then when I left the army, I had no one.
Now, how did you find that? That seems to be a key issue, the going from being in the army, where you're kind of looked after in a way, aren't you?
It was a sort of a culture shock. I mean, simple things like paying an ESB bill, you didn't know how to go about doing the likes of that, you know, because that's all of, you don't have to do that when you're in the army. You don't have them type of things to do, and people do find it a barrier between getting on with your life, doing simple things that everyone else takes for granted in life.
Right. And the social side, are all your friends kind of army? Do you
more or less, yeah. All friends.
So when you leave the army, you're leaving a whole world.
It's sort of like a family to you. The army is like a family to you. I mean, when you're in the army and you get to know everyone. They're all your friends. They're the people you hang around with. They're the people you go out for a drink with, and that type of thing.
But, when you're back in, you were a good while living outside the army.
I was indeed, yeah.
You had a job.
I had a job, yeah.
You're enjoying it.
Yeah.
How does it come to... Because I would hope that if I found myself in a situation, I'd be turning to my family or friends and saying...
Well, unfortunately, everyone's family is not in a position to help, The families are struggling as well. Everyone is more or less struggling through these times.
But surely somebody can offer you a couch or...
Well, you do, but you don't like intruding on your family. That I mean, Dave's small children in the house, and that's themselves. They don't want to be coming down and seeing an uncle or someone lying on the couch.
Not going to be for long, you'd hope.
Well, it's not that easy getting housing out there. There is a problem with housing out there.
But I mean, does that come down then for you that you'd rather sleep on the street than ask your
Well, it is a sort of a pride thing, but not really. Some people don't have family to turn to. I mean, a lot of people in the army are just spent 30, 40 years in the army and there might be an only child or something, or they might have no family. The family might have been all passed on or something.
What did you find the experience like of being on the street?
Horrific. I remember one morning waking up. I was about 2 or 3 weeks on the streets, and I was staying in at the doorway down at Four Courts. And I woke up one morning about 3 o'clock in the morning by someone kicking me. And it was a young Gardaí telling me to get up. I was useless. I was good for nothing. So after serving your country and that, and to wake up at that type of thing.
Did you talk to him?
I didn't. I just got up and took my bag and just walked away.
Were you not angry? Would you not like to tell him?
You do get angry, but it's not going to do you any good. It's not going to do you any good getting angry with someone like that.
Yeah, my God, it's horrible.
But, I mean, a lot of it has got to do with ignorance as well from the people.
I have to say, I think there'll be people listening to this, and there'll be Gardaí listening to this who will be horrified by the actions of that man.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunately that's what's happening out there.
Very out of keeping. You didn't drink or anything during this?
No, I'm not a drinker, no.
Is that, I can't help but think that you'd almost need a drink to be on the streets.
Some people, that's why some people probably turn to drink to get out of the habit of depressing life every day.
Yeah, God, horrible. Sean, what was your experience? Why did you join the army?
I joined the army in 1974.
Right.
Well, before that I was actually in Leopardstown Hospital working on the ambulance.
Yeah.
And I got separated. But we won't go into that, but we got separated. And I was barred out of the area. So I had to leave the job.
Right.
And I had nowhere to go. I said with the brother-in-law,
Was this before you joined the army?
No, before I joined, no. I joined the army in 74.
Yes. And then you were how many years in the army?
About 23 and a half. 24.
And what were you doing there?
Sorry?
What were you doing there?
You'd want to speak over a little because
all right,
I'm slightly deaf.
All right. That must be the army, is it?
Well, it is, yes. Only medics are the only ones that weren't issued with any air defenders.
Right.
6 months before I left.
So what was you were doing in the army?
So I was medic.
Medic, right. Is that a job, a skill you can take into civilian life then?
It could be, but it doesn't necessarily translate in a sense because when you're in the army, before you get out, when you're in the army, you're alert in a sense because you may be alert by the army.
Yeah.
It's not as, once you get past recruit training, it's not as regimented as people say it is.
Right.
You're just told to do a job, you do it.
Yeah.
End of story, and you keep on doing it. And you work in your own supervision.
Right. Were you married all the time you were in the army?
No, I got married 74. I got married about 82 actually.
Okay, not long afterwards. And do you have kids?
I have 2 kids.
2 kids, family home, all that.
Oh yeah, family home in Sallybrook,
Right. And then you came out of the army. Were you still married when you came out?
Oh yeah.
Right.
I was having problems before I came out.
Okay.
But that's we won't go into that.
But just was it what people say that it's the adjustment to leaving?
Well, you can imagine, right? You're working in a job, you're spending 8 hours a day, right? At home, right? You go home at the end of the day, right? You're only seeing your wife for about half an hour.
Yeah.
Then you're in bed, you're asleep, and you're only seeing your kid for I'd say 2 hours at the most.
Yeah.
You're doing that for 23 and a half, 24 years. And then coming out to being under our feet 24/7.
Yeah.
That can't be healthy for anyone.
Yeah, and is that what you think was part of...
It did. It put a strain on it,
And what happened? Did you leave the family home then?
I was barred out of the family home.
Barred out of the family home, right.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to?
I went to the Brothers for 2 months, and then I went to the Salvation Army in Yorkshire. Then I got a job out of the Sally. I was working around the corner here for about 10, 15 years. Yeah. Around in the Sally with the York House.
Right.
I worked for 15 years until I got collapsed lung.
Right.
Got collapsed lung, well, partially collapsed lung through an infection on the bone. I broke the year before. And I've been out for 2 years now.
And you lived on the street, though, did you?
Well, I was lucky enough not to live in the street because a brother put me up. But there was times when, you know,
Came very close.
when I did live in the streets for about a week, maybe
Right.
3 or 4 days before the brother found out. You know,
Yeah.
and I was actually
That must have been very hard for you.
I was actually put into prison. I was in prison for I went. I'll be honest now. I was going home. I went home from. Went home. Got off the bus. Went into the house, and the guards arrived and put me in handcuffs. And said I was at the breach and protection order.
Right.
And I was led down the. Over the way and
Yeah.
the bridewell
Yeah.
into court. I was.
So, Ollie, are they very common stories that you
They'd be
hear?
typical to be. People would be, for various reasons, would find themselves homeless, and soldier would be a very proud person. So they wouldn't always come to us directly,
Yeah.
or they wouldn't go to anyone directly. They've always managed, or they've also always looked after themselves, and it's very hard on them when they find they're not able to cope.
And how does your organisation help?
What we do is we provide accommodation. We have 3 homes, the main one being in Smithfield in Dublin. We have a home in Letterkenny and a home in Athlone. And we're also opening a drop-in centre in Limerick in the next few months. And that's the way we help. We provide accommodation, and where we can, we give other help.
Right.
We can't provide, we're not competent in providing caring facilities, but our managers in all the homes have built up a network with the HSE and with the social services. So we have been able to get people access to various addiction courses and the like, you know.
Right.
So
It sounds like an area where help could be needed is that transition from the army back into civilian life. It sounds like that is, and if the statistics you're saying from England are accurate, it sounds like it's a worldwide problem for
it would
anybody
seem to
leaving
be.
the army.
It's like, for instance, it's not typical. Most people do cope. That's the first thing to say. Most people do cope. But you could have a person who came through an orphanage, straight into the Defence Forces, stayed there till they're 60 years of age,
Okay.
and has never lived outside of an institution.
Right.
Has always known what they were supposed to be doing at a particular time.
And that can be quite common.
And that can be quite... Even when I come out myself, a thing like getting a prescription,
You've no idea.
I had no idea.
God,
these are things that you take for
things
granted.
you absolutely take for granted. So for this week, it's buy a fuchsia badge, isn't it?
Buy a fuchsia emblem, and we also have little key rings. But we'd also like ex-service personnel to join the organisation.
Sure.
Because that's the best way to help. Is
Okay. And is there a website for that?
It's www.oneconnect.ie.
oneconnect.ie.
And our phone number is 014850666.
Very good. Ollie, thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Thanks very much,
O'Connor,
Tom.
they're the Chief Executive of One. And Pat Cochran and Sean Keating, thanks very much for your stories as well.